The Oregon-California Trails Association Emigrant Trails Hall of Fame honors leaders of the 19th century Western migration and individuals in later generations whose work has contributed significantly to the understanding and preservation of the trail legacy. Established in 2015, the Hall of Fame now has 43 members, and new members are added annually. This year, we honor Thomas Fitzpatrick, William Wayne Morrison, and Francis Fuller Victor. Thomas Fitzpatrick was one of the legendary 19th century mountain men. Born in Ireland in 1799, he emigrated to America at age 17. He entered the fur trade in 1823, accompanying the William Ashley Party up the Missouri River. He and Jedediah Smith led a small party into Wyoming, wintering in the Wind River Valley. They learned from Indians of a route into the Green River Valley and can be credited with the rediscovery of South Pass. Over the years, he worked with Jim Bridger, Jim Beckworth, David Jackson, Joshua Pilcher, William and Milton Sublette, and other well-known mountain men. In 1841, he led the first wagon company west, which included the Bidwill Bartleson Party and the Catholic Missionary Party of Father Pierre-Jean de Smet. In 1843-44, he worked as a guide for John Fremont's second expedition. He also guided military parties throughout the West. He was appointed Indian agent for the Upper Platte and Arkansas River valleys in 1846 and was responsible for negotiations with a number of tribes. He planned and organized the massive gathering of Plains Indians that resulted in the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851. Fitzpatrick died in 1854 on a trip to Washington, D.C. regarding the Treaty of Fort Atkinson and was buried in the Congressional Cemetery. William Wayne Morrison, a prominent Oregon Trail historian, was born in Adelaide, West Virginia in 1898 and developed his interest in history early in his teenage years. He worked for the Union Pacific Railroad in Nebraska and Wyoming for 48 years, from 1919 until his retirement. His interest in history consumed most of his free time. His wife, Mildred, and their daughter, Wanda, frequently accompanied him on trips along the trails, searching for graves and story spots. He sought out living descendants of the pioneers to learn about their journeys and circumstances of those who died and were buried on the trail. He conducted meticulous research to document his findings, wrote extensively, and initiated projects for preservation of graves and historic sites. A notable project he initiated was the restoration of the historic Rock Creek Church in Clackamas County, Oregon. Built in 1852, it was one of the first 3 Methodist churches in Oregon. On his first visit in 1949, he was disturbed by its deterioration in the years since services were last held there. He called public attention to the need for restoration, helped raise money for the project, and spoke at its dedication in 1951. The church was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1975. In the foreword to her 1954 book, The Oregon Trail, Dr. Margaret Long wrote, "Various organizations have placed Oregon Trail monuments and have restored and protected gravestones along the trail. W. W. Morrison of Cheyenne, Wyoming, has done more than anyone else in recording forgotten graves." Morrison's extensive collection of maps, photographs, diaries, transcripts, artifacts, and research material is now archived at the University of Wyoming American Heritage Center. Francis Fuller Victor, widely regarded as the mother of Oregon history, was born in Rome, New York in 1826. Before arriving in Oregon in 1864, she pursued a literary career in the East, Midwest, and California. Her first book, The River of the West, published in 1870, was a biography of Joseph Meek, one of the early mountain men in the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, who later settled in Oregon and served as a legislator and United States Marshal for the Oregon Territory. The book provided an account of Oregon history from Meek's perspective that was both spirited and controversial. Although recognizing the significance of Marcus Whitman's role in the settlement of Oregon, Victor was nevertheless highly critical of him and believed that her most significant contribution to history was to challenge several myths associated with him, historian Sherry Bartlett Brown wrote. Beginning in 1875, she worked with Hubert Howe Bancroft for over 10 years, writing at least 6 of the volumes of Hubert Howe Bancroft's 39-volume history series that had originally been attributed to him. After her death, William A. Morrison wrote in the Oregon Historical Quarterly, "Her History of Oregon was the first ever printed which brought the account past the provisional period and which took up the subject for thorough treatment. The press reviews at the time the Oregon volumes were published all united in their praise, and many, taking them to be the work of Hubert Howe Bancroft, pointed out the superiority of this work over the previously published volumes of the Bancroft series. No state has had its early history better preserved or more clearly set forth. By her work on the history of the entire region west of the Rocky Mountains, she has well earned the title once conferred upon her, the Clio of the Northwest."